So, set a little bit of framework. Let's go back to where we were last week. Recap, a little bit of a special session, a little bit of a sneak peek as well. Today we're going to go back to our core constructs. We have a pair of guests in today, which I don't know. I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years. I don't know the last time we had a pair of guests come in, a pair of co-founders. So that in itself is kind of exciting because we'll get to hear some inside baseball, if you will, that you otherwise don't get when it's just one. And these are the folks that I'm talking about here. They are quite accomplished. She's a philosophy and biz alum. He's comp sci. She's a serial founder, has worked in ed tech, sustainability, and healthcare. She worked at Google X. I never even heard of this thing that she did called a Bonderman Fellow. Raise your hand if you've heard of that before. Okay, just me evidently. Wildly amazing experience. You basically get a year to just go live the best life ever anywhere in the world that you want. He's a tech wizard who's developed several product development teams, and he helped scale a startup from 8 to 800 people. Together, they have raised over $500,000 in pre-seed funding. She's the CEO, he's the CTO. Please help me welcome our guests today, Huang and Pratik Kabra.
Hello.
Hi.
Let's go here. All right, awesome. So thanks so much for being here. We're super excited. We were in your seats about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that if we do our jobs correctly, you will come up here one day, which would be fantastic. So I'm Kathy. I'll share my background. I actually grew up in public housing in Detroit, so slightly different background compared to a lot of my peers who are entrepreneurs. Something you'll start to notice is that a lot of people that start companies, especially in the venture space, come from pretty well-off backgrounds because they can afford to take the risk. So I've actually found that my background has been really helpful for me to understand pain tolerance and tenacity. I was an elite All-American gymnast, so I guess that's its own realm of pain and tenacity. But I worked at Google X on glass, like the OG face computer. I was a commencement speaker at the University of Michigan. And as Eric said, the first company I started out of college was actually converting oil barges into floating hospitals in Indonesia. And then since then have started a handful of sustainability and education-related startups. The last one we sold in 2020 during the pandemic. And then I took a little detour, and in case anyone here is interested in endurance running, the longest run I've done as a race was from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, which is over 300 miles. So that's my background.
Cool. And I'm Pratik. I don't have as impressive a background as Kathy does.
Sure.
But I grew up in Kuwait. I actually came here as an international student, joined College of Engineering. Didn't know that I was going to be a computer science major until my second year. Got very involved in the hackathon scene and started building tons and tons of apps. Ended up working for some startups. Benzinga was one of them. Was a very small company when I had joined as an intern as a web developer. And met Kathy as part of Empowered, which is the entrepreneurship club on campus. Became good friends after that. Did a whole bunch of work on various different hackathons and startups while I was at the university. Got picked up by A16Z's recruitment department, and they recommended me to a company called Elation, which is where I joined full-time after school. When I was employee number 8 over there. Came in as a software engineer, ended up having to do a bit of everything. That's what startups are. I was doing sales, marketing, customer support, and then my day job, which was software engineering. Helped grow that company to over 800 people. We're actually over 1,000 people as of last year. It's worth over $2 billion. And yeah, that was the last thing I did. And then I quit my job last year because it was getting too big for me, reconnected with Kathy, and helped start Folio.
Great. So maybe in the audience here, you will find your co-founder, whether you work with them now or 10 years from now. So today, because you have 2 special guests, I guess, we're actually going to talk about our relationship as co-founders. So what makes for a good co-founder, how do you find a good co-founder, and all of the psychology behind it. All right, but first, actually, we're going to talk about something that we learned from last class, which is that if you want to make a bunch of money, based off of your survey results, starting a venture-backed company is honestly not a good way to do it. Your likelihood of success is less than 10%. if you're lucky. I think the stats are probably significantly less than 10%. And it's a lot of work, like 12-hour-plus days on the regular and a lot of grinding. So just to consider that. If you want to make a lot of money, right, working at Google, a hedge fund, et cetera, will make you a lot more money much faster. It's a good strategy. The other option is that maybe you work at the hedge fund, you make a ton of money, and then you use that money, which is your financial stability, to then start a company. Up to you. Okay, so I will share how we started our company and what it was like, our original team and why it wasn't a good team, and then once we brought Pratik in, how we decided to build our relationship to make sure that the team was the right one for us. So we started this company about 2 years ago, and we started out as good work. So our original mission was to focus on upwards mobility. So we wanted to help the million-plus gig workers, which you can think of as your Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, service workers, et cetera. We wanted them to be able to access jobs that would actually utilize their college degrees. One of the fun facts I learned along the way was that over 50% of Uber drivers actually have a 4-year degree that they just weren't utilizing at the time. Knowing that we wanted to focus on upwards mobility, the goal was to make professional work as flexible and easy to access as getting your next Uber drive. So what we learned very quickly, after doing a lot of user research and testing, was that it is incredibly hard to get adults to change their work and their lifestyle. A lot of them have children, a lot of them have priorities, a lot of them have debt. And so in order to train them to be ready for a professional career, it took a significant amount of effort, and adults simply just did not have the ability to change their priorities. However, what we did notice was that students around your age were very fascinated with the product, and they were actually the most sticky. So they were the most interested in finding these opportunities, building experience, and ideally breaking into a fantastic career after college. And so we pivoted, and we found product market fit by focusing on students like yourself. We did a handful of what we call painted door experiments, which is where we took our platform and we made 5 different versions of the site that we had and put them onto Google, and then threw a bunch of, like maybe $50 each at a bunch of ads. And what we noticed was that the platform that was targeted towards students was the most alluring, and we got people to go from seeing the ad to clicking all the way into purchasing our platform. From there, we realized that what we really needed to offer was guaranteed internships, mentorship, and training. And then for employers, in order to convince all of them to hire all of you, what they really needed to see was a way to try you out before they could buy you. So what we offered was basically students that would earn college credit for doing internships, and in exchange, employers would get them for free. And if they did a fantastic job during the semester, then they would offer the student payment, which was great for both sides. And then as a result, about 85% of our students were getting a paid extended offer. So we realized this was a really sustainable model for both the student side, the employer side, and for universities. We've since partnered with a handful of companies that are fantastic, like Google, Spotify, and universities like Stanford. One of the things that has been most exciting is our partnerships with venture-backed, with VCs. So we have access to all of the startups at YC, Techstars, et cetera. So once we hit product market fit, my co-founder and I at the time, Sukita, I think we had a fantastic expertise in design and product development. Sukita's background was in both engineering, and she had her master's in design from Stanford. And so we had a lot of confidence going into the really, really early stages of figuring out what works. However, as we started to grow and realize that we had reached really early product market fit, we noticed that she wasn't able to adapt to the needs of the new company. So what we really needed to do to scale was to have a really strong technical team that could scale all of the operations, from assessing students to understanding their skills and codifying them to then matching them to companies. Basically what you're seeing here is that we got that rocket ship trajectory growth. We hit $1 million in ARR in 6 months, which is absurd and fantastic. And then it crashed very quickly because we just could not match students to internships fast enough. Right, that's the crash. So we did a postmortem, and we realized we needed to operate much faster and much more efficiently. We needed to automate a lot of what we're doing, and unfortunately, my co-founder did not have the ability or the interest in doing that. We tried lots of versions of it, but unfortunately, it just didn't work out. And so the big takeaway was essentially that and I guess we had done the survey before on what you think your blind spots will be. But essentially, as a founder, in reality, you are going to have not enough experience for all of the different jobs that you're going to do. You have to somehow learn incredibly quickly to do marketing and sales and build and design all at the same time. My previous co-founder was fantastic at a lot of the previous designing and building and understanding of our researchers, or understanding of our users, but she wasn't fantastic at the sales or the building, and so it didn't. We weren't able to scale with her as our co-leader. However, she is still our head of design. So what I'm here to say is basically you might not be able to grow from an original co-founder into growing into the co-founder of a Series A or beyond startup, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a place in your startup. It's fantastic to be able to utilize your skills and find a leadership position that fits what gives you energy. Right, and so this is my takeaway. Startups are essentially inherently maniacal. When you go to build a venture-backed startup, what you basically pitch to VCs is that you are going to build something that is 10 times more valuable than anything else that's available in the market, but you will use a tenth or less of the resources of your competitors. And so what you have to do along the way is either adapt or evolve, or you will die, like 99% of companies that exist. All right, how to find your co-founder. So once you leave the fantastic university setting, where you get to meet a bunch of people on a normal basis, and you switch classes, and you kind of already have like a filter, because everyone got into Michigan, so you're all great. Then you have to go out and find your own communities. So some of the best places to start are YC Startup Dating. They have an entire platform where you can find other founders or other people that are interested in being founders. Accelerators, so if you join like Techstars or YC or Antler or any of these other ones, they often do co-founder matching. VCs, so if you know VCs, they happen to know founders that have maybe not been successful in their first startup but are interested in starting another one. They might be able to introduce you. And of course, here. Stay in touch with all of your peers, your professors, any of your teachers. They know incredibly smart people, so stay in close connection with those. And what to look for. So I guess what you'll hear is that Pratik and I are very, very different people. And so that means that we have a very complementary skill set, and we think of problems from very different angles. However, we have a very aligned set of values, which we'll share, and we respect and trust each other immensely.
Cool. So talk a little bit about our relationship. A couple of the things that really, I think, make it work for us are candor, radical candor. And that's just a lot of being completely honest and upfront, not trying to hide your words, and just saying what you mean. Not
sugarcoating.
Yeah, just say what you mean. It cuts out a lot of the time taken to get to the right solution and right answer when you're just straight up front. Now, the problem with candor can be that sometimes you can be, it sounds like you're coming off as impolite, and so you need to drop any pretense of anything being malicious with your co-founder. There's that trust there that you're not actually actively attacking me, you're just trying to correct an issue, or you're being honest and upfront about an issue or a problem. So that's how we can work past things very, very quickly. Relentless execution. So if you're going to be in a startup, you need to be a 10xer. So you need to just be doing whatever you need to do to get the job done. Adapt if you need to adapt. Grow and learn. And execute. I get told to get on sales calls. I get told to do marketing work. That's not my background or expertise, but I suck it up and I get it done. And then my day job is building the platform. And that's true of Kathy as well, by the way. Obviously, she's got a much broader skill set than me. She's juggling a lot of hats from being a product person to being a financial accountant and fundraising, hiring, a whole bunch of stuff. Data-driven, I think we're both very data-driven. The truth is in the data, is the thing that I like to say. And so we always try to back a statement, whatever it is, with the data. We always go back to the data to confirm that it is what it is. And then be comfortable with failure. You're going to fail a lot on your journey as entrepreneurs. You need to learn from your mistakes and not just mull over them the entire time and get stuck within that failure loop. You want to grow pre-mortem, post-mortem, and I think we both do that really well. We've experienced a lot of failures in our life, and we've learned to grow from them. What doesn't work? This is where we differ on certain things. I wouldn't say it doesn't work, but where we differ on a lot of things. Professional communication and presentation. Kathy was at Ross. I was a college of engineering student. I walked around in a hoodie 90% of the time. Didn't really care how I dressed. Didn't really care if I shaved. And so professional appearance matters when you're doing leadership at a company, and that's something where we differ. I am also not as good at communicating or verbalizing things, as you might tell from this presentation. But
You're doing
Very
great.
good at communicating technically.
But I'm trying to grow on that up front. And so we have to work together to figure out how to improve professional comms and presentation. Quality of product. Kathy is willing to let some things slide on product. I'm not. That's my baby. I want to make sure that our product is the best it can possibly be. And that's a sticking point, because sometimes Kathy just wants to get it done, get it shipped, get it out the door. And I'm more focused on making sure that we're looking after the growth of the product, growth of the company, et cetera. When to hire and fire. I've been an engineering manager for the past 8 years, and so I like to hire people and delegate tasks, which is kind of big business thinking, whereas Kathy has been doing startup after startup after startup, and she's just been doing all the work herself. So sometimes we have a little bit of a sticking point of like, hire someone to do this, you don't need to be doing this. And so you need to know when to hire someone, but she's also has an incredibly kind heart, so sometimes she's not willing to fire someone because she's being kind, so that's a sticking point for us. Patience, again, this is mostly to do with people. I tend to be a little bit more patient with people versus Kathy has an on-off switch on like, get it done or don't get it done. And so we have to work on that a little bit. And then when and how much to raise. This is more of a point for us right now as we try to figure out how fast we want to grow, how fast we want to scale. Co-founders generally will have a disagreement on this because one person may have an opinion on how much dilution they want. From an image perspective, it's exciting when your company raises at a very high valuation and loads up with a ton of money. It gives you an opportunity to do a whole bunch of stuff. But if the values are misaligned and you don't want that much dilution or you don't think we need that much money, you have to be careful and come to an agreement on that. Coming together as co-founders. So I came to Kathy last year. Good Work had already launched and Folio was just getting off the ground. Obviously, you saw the crazy tick up and then the crazy tick down that happened. That's when I arrived. Now, before we can start working together, we need to figure out what our relationship as co-founders is going to be. This is a conversation that you need to have with your co-founder or with a potential co-founder before you get started so that all the details are ironed out. Some of the stuff that we talked about was being able to identify what our working relationship is. The good thing with this is Kathy and I had already worked together pretty regularly and at Michigan, and generally have stayed in touch for a very long time, so we kind of know how each other works, but setting clear goals and expectations on what your working hours are going to look like, what kind of work you're going to be doing, your roles, is very important. Resonate with the product idea. I came from enterprise software, from data catalogs, from selling to businesses, and I was not necessarily in the mindset of, hey, let's go and sell this consumer thing that's helping students get internships. So I had to do a bunch of research and get on board with the idea. Kathy, obviously, this was primarily her idea. She started it, so she was passionate about the project. I had to build that passion. And that's fine. You can totally do that. I've become very passionate about the product at this point. I think we were doing something that could really impact the future of work. But I had to figure that out along the way as I went. Decided on roles. This is a funny one because last year, as I was trying to figure out what my next opportunity was going to be, I was talking to a bunch of other coworkers and connections that I had, potentially about starting something, becoming a co-founder with somebody else. One of the meetings that I had with 2 other potential teammates, we were discussing roles, and there was an argument about who is going to be the CEO of this company. And I was just like, not me. I'm not interested in that at all. But the 2 of them couldn't decide on who is going to be CEO. And so you need to get in front of that and make sure it's clear your roles and expectations and titles are all laid out before you get started with your company. You don't have to be a CEO to be important in the company or to have the business have some meaning to you. So just take that for what it is. And then equitably split. We have to decide who's getting what percentage of the company or what my value is coming into the company. And so that's something that we ironed out beforehand.
So speaking of equity split.
All right, students, fill in your answer here.
How much equity do you think I have in Folio?
This is like the most vulnerable EHour moment we've had all year.
I know, we're really,
Way to
really
go
showing our
for
cards.
both of them.
Next, we'll give you our data room. Ooh, interesting.
60-40, like the halfway safe answer. It's like risky enough maybe, but.
Ooh, okay, so clearly most people think 60-40. Maybe we'll do a raise of hands. Is the 60 on Pratik's side or on my
I think
side?
it's Kathy. Like it's
Oh,
Kathy
the
versus
assumption.
Pratik.
Okay, got it.
So
Kathy
the
and
assumption
Pratik.
is 60% Kathy.
Got it.
It's funny that 50-50 wasn't even, oh, it is there. Okay, yeah.
50, yeah,
No, sorry,
yeah.
I couldn't read. So,
Right. So there's
so
very different.
more than half the people don't think I deserve 50% of the company, which is telling. I was hoping it would be a lot more than that. But I will say the reality is way down. I have 20% of the company. Yeah, it's an 80-20 split. And we can get into, well, should I get into why?
Sure,
We
yeah,
came
yeah.
to that decision?
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously there's, like, this is going to go from company to company, but to give you an idea of what my thinking was on what was acceptable, obviously I wanted to have co-founder status in the company. I was employee number 3 coming in mostly to replace a co-founder. And so you want to have enough to make it worth you, one, investing your time, but also committing to the business. It's also important for Kathy to give me enough so that she knows that I'm committed to the business, because this is important to me. At the same time, I didn't come in with the mindset of looking for a 50-50 split. The business was already established. They already had a product that they were trying to test with. And so kind of in my mind, 80% of the work had been done at this point, you could say. And yeah, I mean, beyond that, it was literally just talking about it. I threw a number out there, and Kathy was like, that's a little bit high, maybe this. And I was like, that's a little bit low, maybe this. We arrived at 20%. And I was like, that sounds like a good round number. And that's enough for me to think that all the work and effort that I put in terms of building the platform, building the company, is going to be worth something in the end. And at the same time, Kathy has done enough work to lower the risk for me, and that's worth this much.
Yeah. So YC will say when you're at the incubator, if you're pretty early, they tend to say 50-50. And the reason why they'll say 50-50 is because it shouldn't matter. Well, you want to align the equity with the person's motivation, right? So give your co-founder, give your teammates as much equity as they need to be fully committed. And so 50-50 is fair. That said, when you raise your first round, you can change your equity packages. So it's not like it's set in stone. You can also redesign your equity packages to earn more equity over time. So it could be performance-based. But we started with 80-20 because I think a big part of it was that I had heavily de-risked the company. And so oftentimes you give people equity because there's so much risk that they are trading off between a large company job that would give them like a 500K salary, or being paid nothing for your first 6 or so months.
That my salary is like $10,000 a year right now. So yeah, I'm basically paid nothing. I'm paid enough to not get the IRS knocking on my door saying, why are you not paying?
Yes, fair. But also you have like millions of dollars in equity. So,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Okay. All right, this is our main kind of like last slide. Good co-founders will give you 4 hands. So if you have the right partner in your life, and maybe you can think of this as like dating also, or friendships and whatever else. But basically, if you have the right person in your life, they will double your capacity. They'll give you 4 hands. You can do so much more. Ideally, if you have a fantastic, fantastic co-founder or life partner generally, they'll give you more than 4 hands, and that's great. If you have the wrong partner, you will spend most of your time trying to micromanage and understand what is going wrong, and all of a sudden you have 1 less hand. So if there's any takeaway from what you just heard in the last 10 or so minutes, find the right partners in your life, not just your co-founders, but also your life partners, any of your friends, et cetera. And so once we found the right partner, essentially you can see from December, our revenue skyrocketed, which was fantastic.
Outstanding. All right, thank you both. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. Thrilled to do it. When we're talking about you two now being co-founders, to your point, this wasn't how it started. This wasn't what you envisioned. This wasn't your first choice, if you will. He's so glad to have him here now. But that's not how it went at first. You failed on finding a co-founder. But you have learned over the years how to fail successfully, how to learn from failure. Students, you had asked in the opening class, we said, what do you want to learn? You said, I want to learn the tactics of operating startup. I want to learn the tactics of how to fail. A lot of you said you've never failed before. Can you give them an education on what it means to fail successfully?
Ooh, okay, so I think if you want like a full breakdown of the philosophy behind all of this, Ray Dalio actually has this fantastic model of how to fail successfully. So if you think about your career as a trajectory, so as a line, basically what happens is you are going to do these little loops where every single time you try something new, you're going to start at point 0, you'll have 0 skills at it, and you'll eventually learn and make the investment, and you'll fail along the way. Every single time before you go and take that next big leap, what we highly recommend is that you pre-mortem. So you prepare to fail, essentially, which is right up there. So the activity that we like to do every time we try to change our strategy or go after a new customer or whatever other big thing is we sit down and we think, okay, it's 6 months from now and we have failed. What happened that caused that failure? And then what that allows us to do is think about what's happened and then have a plan in place for all of the things we can do to prevent those things from happening. So that's your pre-mortem. And then after you launch something, do a post-mortem. So take a look at your pre-mortem notes, take a look at what happened, and then take a note of what you could have improved and review it. And the biggest part of your pre-mortem and post-mortem is basically to be accountable. So you should be able to take notes on what you're going to change and hold each other accountable for those things that you change.
And I want to peel this back for a second here. You took a big risk by jumping into an opportunity to be a co-founder here that you didn't have to take. You had a great career going. You were well set up. What, as an engineer and as a technically oriented person for the students who are in that same position here, what put you in a position to feel comfortable taking that risk? What was it that you otherwise saw or you embraced that said, okay, yeah, I'm willing to roll the dice on this?
Oh, it's an interesting one. I mean, honestly, Kathy, she's the right co-founder. She's executed very well on past startups, and so evaluating that. But then also, like, there's, in a way, you just need to be comfortable with accepting that you will fail and jumping in to, I think, head first and follow the process to like pre-mortem, post-mortem to make sure that you exceed from that. So I don't think I was ever afraid of failure. I never approached it as like, oh, it's going to be bad if we fail. I was more of the sense of, we're going to fail, doesn't matter. I think we can build something successful regardless. And I think we're both people that can execute well on things, so having that self-confidence in yourself to be able to execute, and that your co-founder can execute.
The pre-mortem analysis that you did that reaffirm where your gut was in going into this, or did that evolve where your gut was?
That affirmed more than anything else. The pre-mortem that I was doing on the folio side was affirmation that this is the right path, because breaking down the planning, I was like, what are the places that things could fail with folio? And I was like, okay, cool. All the things where failure is possible, those are things that either I'm in control of or something that I trust Kathy can execute on. And so the risk level there is very, very low. And aside from an act of God, I think I was convinced that we were capable of doing this.
Let's explore that a little bit. I want to jump into some of these slides that you've built about the notion of what this market is, what the size of it is, why there's a problem to be addressed, why there's a gap to create company out of. Can you kind of speak to these a little bit?
Yeah, happy to share. It's very relevant to you all. So basically, there's around 20 million college students in the US. That's between 4-year colleges and 2-year colleges and grad school. But there are only 4 million internships. So what that means is basically it is literally impossible for everyone to get the necessary professional experience that they need to understand what type of career they want to build into or what type of skills they need in order to launch into a meaningful career. And the result is that about 53% of students are actually unemployed or underemployed upon graduation. The reason why this is all happening is because if you take a look on this side, if you're an employer, right, if you're going to invest in someone who's new, then you understand that that person won't be able to provide value to your company necessarily for the first year or so because you're training them, they've never worked before, and that's okay. Back in, we'll say like 40 or so years ago, when our parents were first joining the workforce, this investment made sense because our parents would stay in their job for 8 to 10 years. And so the employer would basically say, great, I'm going to invest 1 year of training in you. You're not going to have any sort of return on my company. But then I will know that for the next 8 years, you're going to be awesome. You're going to stay at my company, you're going to provide value, you're going to grow, et cetera. Unfortunately, our generation is very different. Our generation, meaning millennials and Gen Z, we change jobs every 1 to 3 years. And we have to keep up with technology, and it changes so frequently. And we have to continuously upskill. So the way we work is fundamentally just so different, and the marketplace of jobs, which is for the most part run by older generations, hasn't been able to keep up. So that's what makes us super passionate about building a much better way of helping you all launch into meaningful careers. Yeah,
and to someone who's done kind of startup relations, employer relations, tried to orchestrate internships for students for a long time here at CFE, it was very interesting to me to hear about your company because there is such a dearth of opportunities for students to go into. Startups are so fearful of taking on a student who's not going to be able to help provide for that. So it's a creative approach to that. Go ahead.
One thing I will add on this, it's funny, my Elation experience, I had interned with them, and the range of internship experience was quite crazy. I ended up getting my full-time offer after an internship. I was struggling to get a job anywhere else because I sucked at interviewing and just didn't have a profile that was attractive to a big corporation. Elation still took me on because they were mostly trialing different ways to bring on board talent and just needed to scale up to some extent, and they weren't able to do it through full-time hires. There were 3 interns that year. I was the only one who got a full-time offer. The other 2 interns were struggling at the company because of their lack of willingness to sort of expand and try a whole bunch of different things and just push themselves, and also just basic professional skills, which is very interesting. They ran into trouble communicating their deadlines and managing timelines, things like that. But they were great engineers. One of them came from MIT, the other one from Stanford, and a kid from University of Michigan beat them out on a full-time offer at this company. When I became an engineering leader at Elation, we were hiring interns. From a leadership perspective, interns were something that we wanted to try, but it was a big push it was really difficult to get the higher leadership on board for hiring interns. It's very heavy for a company to bring on board and build an internship program. Even at the size of 200 people, Alation was not interested in bringing on interns. Even though we knew it was a great way to identify good talent, they just did not want to spend the amount of time that it takes to mentor and onboard people. They just wanted to get somebody who was ready to go from the ground running.
So, from my understanding, part of what you're doing with the company is providing training, providing some education and a series of different training workshops and programs over a matter of months before the students actually get an opportunity to be in the open job market that's for paid work. Peel back the curtain a little bit, give them the 2-3 tips about what are the highlights that within that training program you're just like, boom, these are the anchors we have to emphasize and drive home.
Ooh,
what are those?
good question.
Don't be late to interviews.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. That happens like 20-30% of the time, and it's such a basic thing. Just be on time. Michigan time isn't a thing anymore over here, I just realized. And so we made this joke a couple of days ago, but yeah, there's no Michigan time anywhere else. You got to be on time.
Michigan time was 10 minutes late, everything was cool.
Yeah, before classes ended 10 minutes early, we used to end on time, but we used to have 10 minutes to get to class, so.
I like to talk about proof over pedigree. So what that basically means is prove to me that you can do the job by showing me a project you've done that's either very relevant to my company, or show me the programming languages that you've used, show me your hackathon projects. It doesn't have to be paid projects, but just show me that you can do it. And then that allows you to beat the MIT and Stanford kids, or like whatever we want to compare this to. But proof means much more than just a name on your resume.
To that point, and I try to ask every speaker this because this is something that I think is so hard to appreciate until you're out into the world. They all collectively are here at a very incredible, prestigious institution, but there's humility to Michigan that there's not at other institutions. How would you frame the perception of a Michigan graduate and a Michigan alum who's going for either that internship or that entry-level job compared to their peers? What do they need to know about how they're being immediately perceived coming in as a Michigan grad?
Ooh. Michigan grads, I think this university has a legacy of being more progressive. I think we've always pushed the limits of diversity and inclusion. I think we are one of the first to allow for different gender identities and different people of color to join our university. And so I think that legacy actually still remains. The Michigan students that I speak to are, in a lot of ways, less entitled and more respectful, generally.
Yeah, definitely. From what I heard from the people that were hiring me, apparently I came across as the most humble of the group. I had this attitude of, I know enough to know what I'm doing, but I'm curious and respectful. Basic stuff. I was doing research on my hiring manager, asking them about their life, their kids, their passion projects and stuff, showing that I really cared about the company and the people. That's not something that they got from a lot of other schools. And I think it just comes from the fact that Michigan in general has a much more friendly attitude as a place than a lot of other schools. Even me coming from Austin, Texas, now that's where I live, I come here and everyone's happily saying hi, hello, good morning, how are you? Just striking up a conversation. Don't even know me, but very happy to do that. And that's something you see on campus. So.
And I'm going to make a presumption that you both tapped into that legacy when you went to go exit Michigan and get your first jobs at Bazinga and then talking about Google Glass. For those of you who might not know, Google Glass was invented by Babak Parvez, who's a U of M College of Engineering graduate. We just had him here last semester. And Bazinga is also co-founded and run by CEO Jason Raznick, who's also here. Did you both tap the network and kind of get those opportunities because of Michigan?
100%. You will find Michigan people everywhere. There's pretty much a guarantee there's going to be a Michigan person at the company that you want to go work for. Yeah. You should tap into the Michigan network. Everyone is very proudful. They have a lot of Michigan pride. And something as simple as sending a message on LinkedIn. If you are going to send a message to someone, by the way, and you have an ask, even if it's a Michigan person, they will do something for you if it takes them less than 30 seconds. So make sure that you give them very specific instructions on like, hi, I'm looking for a referral. Please take my resume and put it in your referral system, in your ATS system, whatever it is, and that's it. Because everyone has busy lives, everyone has got priorities, but they will do it for you when nobody else will, and you should tap into that.
100%. The only thing I would add to that is include a PS, something that's going to make you memorable when they open up that LinkedIn message out of the 10,000 else that they open up. Maybe it's a recent post they had, you saw a picture of their golden retriever, whatever it might be, something that's going to make you stand out just a little bit.
And end with Go Blue.
Go Blue. Go Blue always helps. So part of the situation that probably prompted these employers to give you the opportunity is you both did something that a lot of Michigan students struggle with doing, which is embracing risk even while you're in college, taking the opportunity to do something you have no idea what you're doing, even though you might fail. Talk to that a little bit, what you did at MHAX with the Michigan Stadium. That's a really... Go ahead.
Very happy to share. Gosh, so I think MHAX is revived, maybe.
Yep.
Fantastic. So a handful of students and I decided to start the world's largest hackathon. Very fun. And so we had...
And you did this as a non-technical student.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I've always been like the fish out of water, where like I go into places where I traditionally don't belong, but that's okay because it makes it fun. So we're like, let's start the world's largest hackathon. Let's see what we can do. So of course we booked the Michigan Stadium to host this hackathon, which is very expensive to book. And then we provide travel and lodging and food for 1,200 students from across the US. So these are kids from like Florida, like somehow getting up here. And so what you can imagine is like this costs a lot of money. And as someone who was not well practiced in financial management and accounting, our strategy towards launching this thing was just raise as much as humanly possible. And so the hackathon happens in December. It's fantastic. We get write-ups in Forbes, like the White House writes about us, et cetera. And we're looking at the bank account, and we're like, we don't have as much money as we need to pay all these invoices. What happened? And essentially, a couple of our sponsors dropped out at the last minute. So for context, we raised nearly $500,000. So like me, 18-year-old kid, goes around and somehow gets $500,000. Fantastic. But we didn't raise enough. And so we had to go to, at the time, Dean Munson, from the College of Engineering dean, and then Thomas Zerbuchen, who was at the CFE at the time, and say, we don't have enough money. Can you give us a loan? And so they gave us a loan for $70,000. And then we had to basically give up. My job was as the CFO. I had originally thought a CFO is a person who raises money. I did not think that the CFO is actually mostly someone who manages the money. So I was great at the sales part. I was not great at the money management part. Short take is basically I had to fire myself, give like half of my job to an admin at the university, realized that I wasn't the right person for it, but I was still fantastic at sales. And then the next time around, we basically raised nearly $1 million. We paid the money back, and we learned our lesson. But that's all to say, this is a fantastic place to have spectacular disasters like that. You're really lucky to have admins and people like Eric and people like the CFE who will bail you out if you run into a similar issue.
That is not a guarantee that CFE will. But we absolutely love to support students doing that kind of thing. In particular, you had a situation where you are not the traditional international student coming in and having stellar grades and having a smooth ride here.
Yeah, in my, end of sophomore year, my GPA was a 1.2.
Woo, shit.
I had failed more classes than I had passed, and the University of Michigan basically was like, all right, what do you... They were trying to encourage me to, get my grades up. Once you're below a 2.0, by the way, you're put on probation and you're at risk of getting kicked out of the school. And the reason was, by the way, it wasn't because I was slacking off or anything. I was spending my time building apps, building websites, working at Benzinga, helping build websites for the Startup Career Fair, for VEX, for all these Empowered Initiatives, the original MHAX website. And I was just interested in doing startups from the beginning. I kind of got sucked into that life. But as an international student, that doesn't work for you, you're here on a visa, and that visa is there for an education. It's not there for you to start businesses, start working, etc. So I had some decisions to make. First of all, recognizing the failure. I'm clearly a problem, but not panicking about the situation, postmorteming, and recognizing that there's a path out of this. All I have to do is get my grades up. How hard can it be? It's pretty hard, but I've managed to start to reorganize my life. I seeked out advisors, seeked out help. Kathy was helping me out with organizing my life a little bit better. Alex Lee was another old friend of ours who really got me to focus, and harsh, stern words were said, but he was helping me get through the thing, as well as my career advisor, who was helping me chart a path with classes and getting things going. Managed to be, in my junior and senior year, I was on the dean's list for 4 semesters in a row. I used to joke about being the lowest GPA student on the dean's list for 4 semesters in a row. But yeah, so to turn it around.
Well, we could talk to you all day long. You two are the odd couple of co-founders. We love you for it. Thank you for coming here today. Thank you, students. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.